Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics, Big Baby and Star Crasher on KINGCOMICS.CA. Check out my other videos, my YouTube channel, King Comics 2021. Check out my Instagram, Maximus Rex 13, and check me out on Facebook, Max Rex and or Big Baby. So today's Wildcard Sunday, guys, where we look at stuff a little bit off the beaten path from our regularly scheduled videos during the week and our regular cast of artists. So once again, you know, for this and next, because this is a four-part miniseries, we're going to be looking at Batman Black and White. We've looked at issue 1. We've looked at issue 2. Without further ado, we're going to get right into issue number 3. So there we go with the Barry Windsor Smith cover, which, you know, in the original actually has a bunch of red here on the cover. I don't know if that was something that Barry Windsor Smith pushed for or whatever, or maybe the editor didn't like it, or whoever collected this edition took it out, or for whatever reason. It did kind of go against the whole black and white thing, so, you know, at worst put in some black blood. I'm pretty sure we'd figure it out, but yeah, that was a weird kind of concession they did maybe for the cover, and then they just brought it back to pure black and white here. First story here by Klaus Janson. I will read the biographies of those artists I'm interested in. It has long been accepted as fact that Klaus Janson is the premier inker in the world of comics. I could see that. In the past decade, however, he has also gained considerable acclaim as a penciler and colorist as well. First gaining widespread attention on Daredevil, Janson later worked on the groundbreaking Batman The Dark Knight Returns, obviously inking it, and followed that by with Batman Gothic. I really like Batman Gothic. It's written by Grant Morrison. It's one of the early storylines from Legends of the Dark Knight. If you don't know about Legends of the Dark Knight, it started being published right around the time or just after the Batman movie, 1989, Tim Burton came out. And it was a very cool series. It was kind of a way to get different artists and writers to do, you know, kind of short 3 to 5 issue stories featuring Batman, and artists who, you know, couldn't necessarily fulfill a regular deadline in the regular Batman monthly issues. So that story, specifically Gothic, is really cool. It's one of my favorite. Janson believes he has a greater affinity for Batman than any other character and consequently has always done his best work on The Dark Knight. I could see that too. Astonishingly, Good Evening Midnight is Janson's very first writing for comics. Well, that's interesting too. That's an interesting fact. Okay, so this story is interesting. You kind of get, you know, Batman going off. The bat signal's been sent out. It's all very visual, right? I don't think there's any talking. There's radio and TV and stuff, I guess, in this kind of thing. But I think it's pretty much a wordless comic as far as dialogue. There's a letter involved, you'll see. So there's that as well that you can read. So Alfred's kind of doing his things here. And he's listening to the radio of what's actually happening on the news and the situation. What's the situation that Batman's going into, basically. So it's just a kind of quiet, calm sequence. Alfred, and he goes into a box here. He's got, I guess, and this must be his quarters in Wayne Mansion. And he picks up a letter and says, "To my son, Bruce Wayne." So I'll read it. Dear Bruce, I've just left you sleeping in your bed, yet I cling to you still, if but in memory. The snow lies heavy against Wayne Manor. It is so very quiet. I hear you still inside me, your laugh. From the first moment I saw you, your joy has infected me. It has changed me. For you see, I was also born that day when you arrived. So here's Batman actually arriving on the scene of the crime, right? Or the situation, the bus up here that was mentioned in the news report. I ran through the snow to find you, calm and waiting. Already you were the teacher, and I was beginning to learn. Before you were born, I was a man convinced life was meant to be conquered, and I spent every minute of my life in pursuit of that. I was determined. I was determined to conquer every disease, vanquish every hatred, put a torch to every darkness. I was obsessed, as I hope you will never be. I want better for you. And of course, we're reminded in this situation and Batman that, of course, it's quite the opposite. Batman has become obsessed, right? With one thing, eradicating crime, it seems. Today, we celebrated your 3rd birthday. You have grown so much, my son. I remember you taking your first steps, courageous, fearless, resourceful in the face of great odds. So it's the Alan Moore thing where the narration is describing something else, but it definitely relates to what's happening with Batman in the present, if you want to put it that way. I think of the coming days, and I watch you grow to be a man when I can speak to you of such things. So Alfred, while he's reading this, lights a fire in the fireplace. The love of children, the need for balance. Disease will be conquered, and hate will be vanquished. What you have taught me, I will teach to you. There will always be a light to keep us from the dark. So in a weird way, even though Batman's a dark character, they're implying that he is the light, right? Obviously. But still, I think a pretty good, clever story. Your loving Father Thomas. And you got a shot of Alfred kind of looking. He's got the letter. He looks at the fire. And then he puts it back in the box. Now, this is significant, and I'll talk about it more when we get to the end of the issue, because this is actually a revised ending. And the original ending, I think, is much better, personally, as just a short story. But I can kind of understand why they would change it in just the tropes and the perception of Batman as being published by a mainstream publisher, right? And there's certain considerations there. But like I said, when we get to that, I'll bring it up again. We'll talk about it. In between that time, and now we're going to move on with Liberatore, I guess is how you're supposed to say it. He's an Italian artist. He's from heavy metal. He blew the comics world apart in the mid-'80s with his explosive creation Ranxerox, serialized in America in Heavy Metal magazine, Metal Hurlant in Europe, right? Co-created with writer Stefano Tamburini, Ranxerox was an ultra-punk look at the absurdity of exaggerated superheroic comic book violence. Response from readers and fellow professionals was astounding, leading to some of heavy metal's biggest selling issues, so people like their parody. Liberatore takes a radical stylistic departure here with a much more sedate approach to storytelling for In Dreams. Yeah, 100%. This is actually a pretty interesting story. I don't think this is something an American artist well, he is the writer here. It's not him, so yeah, okay, maybe it is an American. I should read this just to be safe. In Dreams is not the first time Andrew Helfer has reinterpreted a classic character. His highly original take on the Shadow in the late 1980s was as controversial as it was groundbreaking. He's also written television shows, children's books, and film novelizations. As an editor, Helfer has worked on practically every character in the DC universe, so he is American. So I take back what I said. It just felt like a kind of a European vibe, but as story-wise as well. But I was wrong on that, so Liberatore just providing the art. So we've got this lady here, and basically, she's reaching for this doll here. A lot of symbology and dream stuff. She's actually dreaming right now. And then she sees Batman, and Batman crashes through the windows and scares the crap out of her, right? And now she's at her psychiatrist's office, and she's talking to him about this. Definitely looks like Sigmund Freud. I feel like that's maybe done on purpose, right? Kind of a caricature of a psychiatrist is what they're going for here. The art is very, as I said, it's a more subdued approach. I mean, it's just as fun and dynamic and beautiful. It's just not, Ranxerox is like painted art more so than like pencil and ink art. So this is going for more kind of a pulpy vibe, I feel like. Maybe more in line with like Mark Schultz or Dave Stevens or something, to a certain extent. At least this page here and the page before. So basically, there's something that happened, and he's trying to figure it out. And hello, Jim, I need a favor to set up a meeting with a friend of yours, right? So she doesn't, there's some memories that she's reminded of by the psychiatrist, and she says those are not my memories, right? And he's like, it's impossible. So we're gonna have to help call a friend to help trigger some memories is basically what's happening in the situation. So we go back to when she had been kidnapped as a young girl, and she had her doll, and this big bad guy over here is trying to take it away, and she ripped the head off and stuff. It was very mean to her. And then it's where Batman jumped in, beat the crap out of everyone, and he grabbed her and took her away from this bad situation. But as Dolly, he wasn't realizing she was asking for her doll. So the trauma of being pulled away from her doll by this Batman creature has been giving her those dreams, right? So all of a sudden, boop, she wakes up and Batman is there. She's realized this in this last memory here. And it's not your fault, it never was. You were only trying to help, you were only doing your job, right? And he does end up kind of finding the doll from back then and bringing it back to her. So kind of a strange story. I mean, to wake up also and have Batman just sitting there in your room after you've realized from a dream that he's not a bad guy, still kind of creepy. Just kind of a weird story. Art-wise, though, pretty darn good. I think it looks good overall. There you go. This one, can't stop gushing about it. So Matt Wagner, his work straddles the fence between an eccentric underground worldview and a traditional highly graphic design and drawing sense. Highly graphic? Yeah, obviously. The elaborate worlds of his creator-owned titles, Grendel and Mage, have spawned a legion of diehard Matt Wagner fans. Those same fans can get a more mainstream dose of Matt's work in occasional one-shots and miniseries like Batman Faces and Batman Grendel, as well as Matt's monthly writing chores on Sandman Mystery Theater. Anytime you find something by Matt Wagner that he writes and draws, even the stuff he writes is really good, depending on the artist. But if he's written and drawn it, even Mage, I think, is really cool. You're in for something good, generally. It's a good sign of a quality comic with Matt Wagner. So this story is no exception. Massive use of screen tone here that I think works really well with this kind of 1930s, 1940s kind of gangster setting I think he's going for. Just works really well. And just a simple story of Batman taking on this team of gangsters. Obviously coming out the other end the winner. But just the graphic sense of using, I mean, the balls, honestly, to use screen tone of this size. Like this, I get where it's close together, but this, like, it's pretty far apart, and he's doing some really cool stuff with it. And there's almost no lines really in the artwork. It's mostly like dark shapes, right? And big black areas and stuff. And then he uses the screen tone, duotone, whatever you want to call it, as his gray, but to varying degrees, right, all over the place. So sometimes closer together, sometimes further apart. Sometimes he's using on characters, shadows here. That's pretty interesting. And I think he's just like, you got to have a pretty good graphic sense to use that properly. And Matt Wagner has that, and this looks great. It also adds to all of it the fact that there's no panel borders, right? Because as I said, there's no real like clear-cut lines, or very few, at least, for the stairs and stuff. But overall, it's just big, black areas defining shape and form, and the gray tones, right, defining shadow, sometimes values. It's like the way he uses it here, that's so creative, right? The reflection through the window. I always thought this shot was clever here, right? A darkened room, and then he goes by the curtains, and the curtains start to have more shadow, and then you realize that it's Batman. I think that's a pretty interesting graphic idea. And yeah, just again, page after page of clever use of screen tone. Sometimes you're like, you would think it would start to get confusing or something, but no, the values are and the areas that they cover are so well defined that it just works everywhere. It's like, he's using the duotone almost as like you would use a wash or something. It's so interesting. Even here, he throws in some white on black. Look at that. Didn't even remember seeing that. Is that maybe the only instance he does it, but he does do it. That's crazy. Wow. All this stuff for effect is cool. Even this, wow, the shadows, his shadow fading into the shadow of the background here. Just masterful composition and design. Yeah. And that's the interesting bit at the end. He grabs the Sharpie marker and leaves the bat signal on his forehead, later on to be interpreted by Zack Snyder's Batman branding criminals that he's beaten and brought to prison or something, or brought to justice. Yeah, Batman branding characters, that's pretty strong. You would think at that point the police would be like, okay, well, Batman's branding people, so now we kind of do have to arrest him. You can't just go around branding people. Beating them up, sure, but not branding. I'm kidding. Okay, this story I'm going to kind of gloss over. Not that I don't like Bill Sienkiewicz, excuse me. I'll read his thing, but it deals with cruelty towards cats, and I love cats, and I just can't deal with this whole story here. It's a moral conundrum, philosophical debate, and yeah, just not my kind of thing. Right away, starting with that, just, you're not going to attract me with that. Bill Sienkiewicz is a master of incendiary comic art. His astounding drawing ability, design, and color sense have assured him a place in comic book history. Bill has won almost every major award in the comics world, including the Eagle, Inkpot, Kirby, and Yellow Kid, as well as several merit awards from the Society of Illustrators. Among Bill's award-winning credits are Electra Assassin, Stray Toasters, and Voodoo Child, the illustrated legend of Jimi Hendrix. So yeah, I will always commend Bill Sienkiewicz on great artwork. He pushes boundaries. He's very experimental. He tries stuff, sometimes very clean and illustrative, sometimes very dirty and gritty. He is an amazing artist, and I appreciate the fact that he tries lots of different stuff. I do like this shot here, which is almost to me like Bill Sienkiewicz doing as close to Dark Knight Returns as he can. Kind of the looseness of the bat costume and stuff I like here. Almost slightly scarier Adam West, I guess, is what I see here. But yeah, just people being mean to cats. Can't. So next one, also, I'm going to go through very quickly because it's Teddy Christensen. And I'm just not a huge fan of his art. Not anything I'm really into. And as I've read the description at the end of this issue of you know, the editor's relationship with him. Anyways, I'll get to it right here, basically. When you hire the world's greatest comic book artists, you've got to use your head. Most of these guys are in such demand, you've got to have a really long deadline or you're not going to get talent you want. The talent you want. Sometimes you even fib a little to tell them about when the job is due. Keep a cushion of a few weeks between them and the real deadline. As was the case with a few of the creators involved with the series, Teddy Christensen bent the hell out of the false deadline and even backed right up to the real one. Being the sweetheart that he is, Teddy called to apologize, a million times, assuring me that he actually was working on a story. Towards the end, he even started faxing me apologies. Here's a doodle from one of them. So yeah, just completely busting the deadline here. But anyways, Matt Wagner, there's a poster panel that they used maybe for an ad or didn't end up using, but looks really cool. So here, the Klaus Janson thing I was telling you about, this is very interesting. The original final page. In the original version of Klaus Janson's story, Alfred eventually burns Thomas Wayne's letter, because if you look at previous pages, it's kind of hinted at. It's kind of built up to, in the artwork at least. I thought it was the perfect ending to an exceptional story, but my co-editor Scott Peterson very much disagreed. He felt Alfred would never destroy such a personal item, especially considering it was Thomas Wayne's wish that Bruce would someday read this letter. Scott and I had a major disagreement. He gave me a black eye, and we had Klaus change the panel in question. I still think it's a better story if Alfred burns the note. I do think it is too. It's more, listen, I guess it comes down to, do you think, you know, this is kind of weird to say, but would Alfred be more loyal to Bruce Wayne, Batman, or to Bruce's father, right? So if he burns the letter, he's being true to Bruce Wayne and where he is now in life. And if he doesn't, he puts it away for Bruce to eventually read at some point. He's kind of still being faithful to his father. Neither of which is bad necessarily. I guess it's a choice and it's a moral choice. And, you know, like I said, whether you choose one or the other, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, I guess. But I do agree that the story is much stronger when he burns the letter. That's more in tune with kind of Batman and his world, the bit of nihilism that comes with Batman, the fact that, you know, what happened to his parents. There's nothing he can do about that, and he'll be on this mission forever and ever until he dies, basically. So that's, to me, is more in tune with Batman. Barry Windsor Smith, alternate covers. Quite some time after Barry Windsor Smith agreed to draw the cover for issue 3, he faxed over a sketch. Since it had taken quite a while to actually receive the sketch, I figured Barry had been swamped as usual and had to wait until there was a hole in his schedule. Well, I okayed the sketch and then waited and waited and waited. Finally, the finished piece arrived, only it was completely different from the approach the original sketch showed. Fortunately, Scott Peterson and I liked the new piece, but we scratched our heads over whatever happened to the original idea. Months later, Barry told me that he agonized over trying to get a grasp on the character and went through half a dozen abortive attempts. Here are a few of his near misses. Right? And I would say that, you know, other than the shot of the parents here, down here, it's a little weird, and Bruce kind of being like a zombie kid, which is fun. These two are more maybe kind of almost like Silver Age approaches, right? More classic 40s, 50s kind of Batman there. Batman and Robin was the approach he was taking there. And, you know, kind of took a more, I guess, realistic approach somewhat with the folds in the costume and the seeing Batman's pupils with the cover they actually ran with. And the close-up, too. More of a striking cover, I guess. And that's the cover for issue 4. So that is where we are going to leave it at for today, guys. So that was issue 3, my review of issue 3 of Batman Black and White. If you're watching still and subscribe to the channel, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being there. If you are watching the videos but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a second. It's really quick for you, and it helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to like-minded people who are into comic books just like we are. So everyone out there, hope you enjoyed the video and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Subscribe! Like!